Welcome to Retro Fanfic Retrospective, the podcast where we dredge up old fan films and expose them to the cold, harsh light of 2020. My name is Amato, and with me are...
Tori.
And, wait, fan films?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of cheating today, but we do that sometimes.
We've done it once before.
We're accountable to no one.
Except to God.
Well...
And Amato.
God motto.
Well, we've done it twice before, though, in terms of just, like, not doing a fanfic. Because King's Quest CCT was not a fan fiction.
Yeah.
And neither was Redeath.
We also have our, like, Utena special episode game playing, which I guess is retro fanfic also, so.
I mean, interactive fiction, right?
Interactive
that's
fiction,
the name for the type of game. And that's,
yeah.
That's got fiction in it.
You're right. So we all I'm saying is that we can spread and stretch around.
All you're saying is that
flexible.
Our special episodes should be the numbered episodes, and those numbered episodes should be the special episodes that are not numbered as part of the fan fiction main podcast.
I don't think I was saying that, but all right.
But really, aren't all the episodes very special? So...
Yeah.
We probably have a few duds. Listeners, write in and tell us which of our episodes suck.
No, let's not open that one.
It's like can of worms right
also,
there.
our fan base is, fans. So,
I hope so.
I hope.
So we don't have to prompt them to do this.
That's true. If we have any non-fan hecklers listening, do like entertaining Stadler and Waldorf type comments. Don't just tell us like what is specifically bad.
Right.
All I'm gonna say is fuck the haters. I'm just here for me.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Well, the thing is, how much did we like the topic of this week's episode?
I liked that it was 10 minutes long.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. This week's episode, like this fan film actually made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which I think was part of how it accomplished its goal.
Well,
so I will say that.
What are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about Troops, and I wanted to do it because everyone's seen it. It's a Star Wars fan film from '97, and apparently it was like the vanguard, like kicking off this whole like fan film movement of like Star Wars fan films, and maybe other than Star Wars too, because it seemed to have been relatively early in terms of like having production values enough that like it looked pretty good and like getting wide distribution, I guess at conventions and stuff, early on, that sort of thing. And so, I had reasons to think it might be good. And it's a Cops parody though, which is part of what is very uncomfortable to start off with.
Well, it is. It's a really good Cops parody in the sense that all the stormtroopers in it talk like cops. And I recently rewatched Parks and Rec, and they have that whole thing about the cops, and they're like really accurately done. And it just reminded me of that. Except these stormtroopers who were cops were also Canadian.
Well,
which is a little bit interesting.
I think they were supposed to be generically Midwestern.
They sound Canadian to me.
The main person kind of sounded Canadian, and that was definitely one of the best things about it, is just hearing this stormtrooper talking in this kind of like pleasant, like talking about this, and like we're gonna go and do this, like.
But it was done in like a cop way, like. The situation is, and we're going to deal with the situation now.
Right. It's actually really funny just on that level.
Have you two spent any time watching the show it's parodying, Cops?
No.
None
before my
whatsoever.
time, like when was that on air?
That was on air when we were kids.
Yeah,
so
when we were kids.
But kids weren't supposed to be watching that.
Right. My parents prevented me from watching it. And also,
my parents just wouldn't have put it on, and so I wasn't really... I knew the song.
Yeah.
So I have spent some time watching Cops because we had antenna TV and nothing else to do.
Okay.
Sure.
Same
Good
reason
reason.
why I watched like Perry Mason.
Tell us
And
about
Matt
Cops.
Well, they nailed it pretty much. I mean, there was a lot of characters like that, like the nice talking guy cop who talks like that, and it's like these things were like we haven't dove into the film yet, but they really got this is really good Cops, the show pastiche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know, because I knew it was supposed to be like Cops, because that's extremely explicit from the start where they do the opening song and stuff. But I didn't know how much they had nailed that.
So the couple scenarios they have in this fan film are ones, like if you watch Cops, you would know this setup by heart.
hopefully there was less on-air death in actual cops than there is in this.
That was exaggerated, yeah.
Right.
I will say that, the way that they had the stormtroopers talk in this reminded me of how actual cops talk quite a bit, both from video and life experience. That is absolutely how cops talk. For instance, at my apartment complex the other night, there was someone, tried to, on a megaphone, trying to get a guy out of a car for, at least an hour. And my roommate and I were filming just in case something bad happened. You should always hold the police accountable if you can. But we had a cop come over to talk to us several times and say, "Oh, there's a canine unit." They referred to the dog as a canine unit. "And you guys shouldn't stand here in case we release the canine unit. You could get attacked." And it's like, first of all, it was like a dog on a leash standing next to a car, like across the yard, across the parking lot. It was like, why would the dog attack us? And it was secondly like, y'all, seriously. It's not a unit, it's a dog.
So what we've been dancing around is that this fan film, which you can just go watch. It's so short. It's online. I mean, if you're interested, just go watch it. It's 10 minutes long.
I definitely took my time examining it and didn't watch it 20 minutes before we were set to record.
I definitely took my time watching it and was definitely watching the screen the whole time. Anyway, no, it's not bad, though, in many ways.
It's 10 minutes long, so
it's low commitment. What it is it's following a few stormtroopers who are, like, implicitly on a TV show in, like, the cops format, and they're stationed on Tatooine. And they're going around, like, dealing with a few, like, calls in. And so, in this context, the stormtroopers are, like, the local law enforcement, which I guess they technically are, to the extent there's any law enforcement on Tatooine.
Well, I think there might have been law enforcement. I don't think they were peace officers in Star Wars.
Right. No, definitely not. It would be like, well, do we, the Empire, care about your problem? Probably not, so forget it.
Yeah, I don't think you would call them to keep the peace.
Right.
No, but what's interesting about this is there's two problems they deal with. The first is the Jawas selling stolen droids.
Right. And I've got to say, going into that, one of the really cute things about this is that they keep dancing around the events of A New Hope, who these stormtroopers are completely oblivious to and not, dealing with in any useful way for the Empire in the slightest.
And so watching it, talking about Jawas, the stolen droids, like, oh, they have R2-D2 and C3PO there.
Right.
That was absolutely what it was about. That first scene was, I think, the kind of the opener. It was they set it up as the kind of Canadian sounding stormtrooper being like there were some good little quotes like they started addressing the Jawa and they were like, so these droids belong to your cousin. So if we went to see your cousin, we'd find a proof of ownership certificate, right? Like, and they're like, oh, is this guy your cousin? There are two Jawas, like, is this guy your cousin? Oh, he's your friend. Okay. They're like, okay, friend. And they start asking questions of the friend.
And again, pretty typical cops the show dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's also totally
behavior.
Star Wars style. Totally Star Wars style. It's like they're talking to these Jawas and they understand everything the Jawas are saying, but we're not allowed to know exactly what the Jawas are saying. It's just how Star Wars works. It's like
there wasn't Utini in there.
Right, for sure.
And they repeat everything the Jawas say so we understand, but it's not uncop-like.
No, it's not uncop-like, and it's also not on Star Wars-like.
Exactly,
so it feels very natural in some ways.
So, yeah, just that dialogue is, I guess, kind of Star Wars naturally.
Yeah. And I mean, the scene ends with, like, the Jawas breaking and running for it, and they shoot them. And, like, in a way, it kind of feels like they didn't know how else to end the scene. Kind of like improv style. It's like...
and then we pull out the gun and shoot everybody. Great scene.
Michael Scott style, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty comical in the sense of, like, yeah, that's exactly what stormtroopers would do.
Right.
Just, like, shoot everybody.
Like, that was the joke, because if it was a cop's pastiche, then what would happen in that scene is someone would, like, stand there calmly, then they'd run, and then there'd be an extended chase scene where there'd be a camera guy who's breathing heavily, following a cop who's running and breathing heavily, to chase this person down. But instead, they just shoot him.
Right, because it's, stormtroopers and their evil fascist thugs. So, and by the way, just so I remember to say it, The other thing that's funny about the stormtroopers in this role, besides giving them just like normal cop Midwestern New York Canadian voices, is that the stormtrooper helmet does kind of look like someone who's just kind of like sick of dealing with this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Just a sad frown.
right.
Yeah.
It's not even like they're intimidating, like, oh, evil. Like, when you put them in that context, it's like, yeah, okay.
Well,
Like, okay, I've been through this.
you actually kind of see this in the new Star Wars movies where you have the defecting stormtrooper who is a main character. Like, and his thing is he was only, like, recruited into this because it seemed like the only option at the time, and then he defects at the first moment, right? So you kind of get the idea that these guys they're just, this is, like, not something they're really that into.
There's
right?
other things
like,
they'd rather be doing, but they've got a job to do here.
They've got a job to do here. They're not the best people, though. That's
No.
clear, because they're going to shoot people just because they run away. And that's absolutely what a stormtrooper would do. So,
Except that these stormtroopers hit, so,
Oh.
you know. Yeah. I was just thinking
Sick
about
burn.
stormtroopers in various contexts. It's like, oh, if I was going to play some, like, Star Wars game, like, you know, the ship game, whatever it's called, Armada. Like, it's like I would want to do the TIE fighters, and I would want to do the stormtroopers, like in a thing. And I was like, it's just my goblin liking. Like in Magic the Gathering, I played goblins. Like I want to play kind of like the schmucks who like need a whole bunch of people to accomplish anything, and like you want to pat them on the back for accomplishing it.
So
I don't know what that says about me.
Anybody else here watched The Mandalorian?
No.
only a few episodes, only the first two.
There's an episode at one point where they're pulling a heist, and one of the person there gets introduced as a old Empire sharpshooter, and the Mandalorian goes, "Oh, really?" And the guy turns around and says, "Hey, fuck you! It wasn't Stormtrooper, all right?" Meaning he was an actual like trained sniper
Got it.
sharpshooter.
I mean, it's all narrative because in the first scene of A New Hope, the stormtroopers are shooting people perfectly well, really.
Yeah.
It's just that
Yeah.
every other time they're up against main protagonists, and so they're not allowed to hit.
Yeah,
That's it.
like literally like a million laser blasts can be flying across the screen and people just dive and they're fine.
It's just an unfortunate fan
Let's
narrative.
just dive.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were we talking about? Troops. Right, so the other thing they're called in to deal with is like a domestic dispute with
Owen and Beru.
and that it doesn't seem quite right.
That
No.
was yeah.
It's totally off, really.
That part actually made me kind of upset because I think what they were going for was the cop's flavor of this is a domestic dispute. And it was also an explanation for why Owen and Beru are like skeletons burned out in.
That's
But
supposed to be the joke. Yeah.
yeah, the joke is that it was actually a domestic dispute, and we can get into the details in a second. But the joke is it was a domestic dispute that caused that. But in A New Hope, we're supposed to believe it was the stormtroopers that did that, and that's supposed to be a really big driving point for Luke to fight against the Imperial Army.
Yeah, and the joke was supposed to be undercutting that moment.
Right. And I mean, there's other humor there, and some of it is the interaction with A New Hope again, where like Beru is saying things like, "Oh, Owen never told the boy the truth, and like now he's gone." And it's like, "Yeah, okay. Who's this boy? Is it your son? No, okay, your nephew."
So we still
sure.
have to find this guy, Duke.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, then it's like she cut his ear, and they ask her, what do you want to do? What do you want to do right now? Do you want to blah, blah, blah? And she's like, I want him to go to jail, talking about Owen. And they're like, well, he hasn't done anything wrong, so your options are you can go to this shelter for the night, or you can stay here.
And again, it's very cop to what that's
Yeah.
worth.
Yeah, and it's a lot what they showed on the show. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then I feel like they don't know how to end the scene again, and like it feels like the same thing as before.
It just took a random turn.
A sharp, sudden turn.
Well, it explains, though, the explosion that killed everybody.
Yeah, because
It's
she
not-
had a thermal detonator and pulled it out. That doesn't
No.
even hang with the way the scene was going beforehand.
No.
It doesn't.
yeah.
It doesn't. And it also, like you said, undercuts the main storyline quite a bit.
but
That was,
Like,
that was the purpose.
That's the point. Yeah, no, that's not a bad thing because it's supposed to.
Yeah,
it's a
but
parody.
I don't see
They-
why
they
that's
just-
funny.
Well,
You know?
that's fair.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to find it funny.
That was the joke. Whether it's good or
Right.
not is something else.
I just feel like, I'm just coming from the place of, I think it's funny to treat the Imperials as cops because cops suck and the Imperials suck. I don't think it's funny to undercut the main storyline where they're fucking evil fascists. And it goes with me for that whole thing where people will actually like people in our culture will rep like stormtrooper logo like faces or like imperial symbols on their clothing as if that's like somehow cool. And I'm like, there are situations in which the bad guys are cool. Like there are stories in which the bad guys are cool. Like Scar from The Lion King might be okay, I guess. He's still really nasty.
What?
But
What? No? What?
No, there's explicit like Nazi imagery tied to Scar.
oh, that's true. Yeah, no, you have a good point.
I
But
think you were thinking of Captain Hook.
Captain Hook might.
There you go.
I don't know. There are some villains
Then
where you
again,
can
the bad
be
guys
like.
are terrible in that movie.
Well,
also.
the only reason
The
I
good
mentioned
guys are.
Scar is because he's like one of the Disney gay villains, you know, where like gayness and villainy are tied together. But you have a good point that like, yeah, he's just as bad as the Imperials in the sense that like Nazi imagery is there and they're fascists. Like, it's not cool to rep a villain if they're fucking Nazis, y'all. Like, I don't
Okay.
understand why people don't get that.
So, quick quiz. I had acquaintances in college who ran a D&D like evil party game, which whatever. But all of the characters were Disney villains, and they were pulled together by like Chernabog the demon from Fantasia or whatever. So if you were running a evil character in a D&D game, which Disney villain would you run?
Oh, the one that was based on a drag queen, Ursula.
Ursula.
Ursula's a good choice. I would do Captain Hook.
Oh man.
Actually, though, I think Ursula is still too evil. Like, she's still too mean.
Look.
There are some that, like,
you're going to be evil.
Yeah.
You're going to be
I know,
evil,
but
though.
there's some where you can, like, legitimately get their perspective. Ursula's, like, very mean to Ariel, but...
I had to run the list, I think.
I mean, you know my taste of like incompetence, and so like my top list is like Captain Hook, Gaston. Like, I'm not choosing anyone who actually has power, but
Sure.
Can I pick LeFou?
if you've got the energy to play it, you got Hades.
I was thinking
Oh, yeah,
Hades,
yeah.
but it'd be hard to James Woods the whole thing.
It would. Like you would not talk just because you couldn't keep it up. I feel like I would.
It's a good point. I still think, if you take out the Nazi hyenas from Scar, he's still kind of my favorite.
Well, he's a
That-
lion, so he's got that going
That's
for
a big
him.
if, though. That's a big ask.
Yeah, but still, it's like, all the quips he makes, like, and I'm a monkey's uncle.
Oh yeah, the way Scar talks is awesome.
Yeah, it's Jeremy Irons, and he's
Yeah,
so good
The
at it.
performance was great. The turn of phrases were amazing. Yeah.
Like, I can relate to Scar's position as being, like, the sort of, like, ousted, skinny faggot, Like, I can relate.
The question is, would anyone voluntarily choose the only cleric, which is Frollo?
Oh, no. Frollo's too creepy.
Who wants to be Frollo, right?
Yeah, Frollo's creepy. Right?
I don't want to be in that headspace.
No.
Who's the villain in Moana?
There's no
There's no
villain
villain.
in
Yeah,
Moana.
Villain in Moana.
Yeah, Tafiti kind
That,
of.
not really a
No.
villain.
Yeah,
Not the villain.
but yeah, that's the closest you get.
Am I missing a cleric anywhere, by the way?
A cleric?
Yeah, for a D&D party of Disney villains. Are there an option other than Frollo?
Don't think so.
Do you have any evil druids that would work?
Well, what about what's their name? Facilier from the Toad one.
Yeah, no, he's cool. Debatable, but you're right.
Well, you can go Witch Doctor.
You could go
right?
with, yeah. He could have
Yeah.
healing spells. He could have healing
Was that
spells.
their name?
He's pretty
Facilier?
cool. Yeah, Dr. Facilier.
Yeah, Dr. Facilier is definitely a step up over
Doctor
Frollo.
does things.
Right.
Facilier.
He's got friends
Pretty cool.
in various places.
Also,
On the other
Cruella
side.
de Vil, pretty fucking evil because she's murders dogs, and that's the peak evil.
Puppies.
Puppies. That is peak evil. But also, like, her
Fun to play.
aesthetic is dope.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, and her crazy eyes when she's driving that car, like, unforgettable.
Yeah, that's another Scar problem. Where it's like,
Yeah.
a lot of problems, but it's kind of dope, though.
I know, but, like, personality and aesthetic, kind of cool.
I would just say, even in an evil D&D game, just make sure you don't have Scar and Cruella de Vil in the same party. Because we do want to avoid as much inter-party conflict as possible.
Well, then you get, like, the Hercules who is posing for the vase.
Yeah. Or you could get, like, Cruella de Vil trying to murder Scar for his pelt. Like, that would be kind of interesting.
I would love to see Scar be
That's what I was getting
Cruella
at.
de Vil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
exchange would be...
I mean,
just snarky and gorgeous. It'd be great.
I know. But, like, Scar, like, clearly has lion powers that Cruella de Vil is, like, a frail old woman does not. So, like, physically, he could defeat her, but I don't think he's interested in that. I feel like it'd be a very interesting interaction.
When it comes to brains, I have the lion shit. But when it comes to brute strength...
No. Right. So, Scar is very relatable, I just have to say. And until the Nazi hyena is very relatable.
All right, so troops.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
I mean, part of it is it's so short, we've talked about almost all of it.
Yeah.
There's like another part that I thought was cute, where like another stormtrooper who's off doing other stuff comes in and is like, oh, we didn't find the droids we were looking for. And I was like,
Yeah, that was funny. Well, I mean, I think one thing we can talk about is how well done this is just as a film with costuming and set
visually
design,
it's really good.
Visually, it's like perfect.
Even the special effects were done all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it helps that New Hope was, pioneering this used future aesthetic where like things don't have to look shiny and perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also just everything looks great. That like the Jawas look like Jawas, the
Yeah.
stormtroopers look like stormtroopers. The desert looks like Tatooine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just California.
But, like, where'd they get all these costumes? Like, that must have cost some money.
I'm guessing there were cosplayers that they
Yeah.
recruited for
Oh,
this.
I'll
Totally.
bet people just owned those costumes or knew people who owned them.
What's
But
that?
they were great costumes.
What's that high-end Star Wars cosplay group?
I don't know.
501st.
Nah.
Yeah, the 501st Legion. Where they're like an elitist Star Wars cosplay group where your cosplay has to meet this certain standard in order to get
Wow.
admitted. And then so they have like a
Okay.
full legion of stormtroopers.
That's... See, I'm still gonna complain because it's like... Cosplaying a stormtrooper is, like, fundamentally offensive to me. They're literally called stormtroopers.
Yes, they are.
No ambiguity about that.
Right. Like, siding with the Imperials in any way, even cosplaying them, I find really messed up. I don't know if I'm... Does that seem too extreme? Like, I don't know. It's fiction, I understand, but, like, they are fictional Nazis.
I bring this back to the fantasy violence point, where people might see it's okay because they don't see it as realistic or as in something that could happen.
Sure, but I kind of buy the fantasy violence point in that it may not be as affecting to people's trauma because it is extrapolated into a fantasy world. Whereas the ideology...
Yeah, I'm suggesting these people have the ideology also in the fantasy part as not that realistic and triggering.
I see what you mean. I just...
Whether that's true or not, I don't think so.
Yeah,
But I'm guessing that's where these people are coming from because I don't think they're intending to.
Yeah, no, I not at all. And I think
I agree.
I think there is the extent to which the Empire in Star Wars, it's like, yeah, the stormtroopers are clearly supposed to evoke, Nazis because they're called stormtroopers
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
But like the Empire itself doesn't really have a dogma, really. It's just like, oh, well, we want to conquer in
Right.
general.
Yeah, look at
Like-
the first three films. They're just the bad guy. They shoot people. Like that.
Right,
Right.
exactly. Even
But
the kind of like
that's so-
anti-alien thing that like you would read into it as soon as you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of expanded on in an expanded universe. It's still not even stated in the movies. It's like
It might have just been easier for casting.
it was just right. They just didn't want to distract, like, probably when they were making the movies, they were just like, we just don't want to paint someone blue and, have them be an alien or whatever.
Sure.
All movie. Anyway. Is there anything else in Troops?
Tom Servo was the robot.
Yeah, right. I remembered the Tom Servo guest appearance.
Right.
Oh.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Troops.
I mean, it's a really well done fan film, and it definitely mimics Cops pretty well, I think. Especially the accent really sold it for me.
It did it well. It looked good, filmed well. The script could have used some punching up, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it was probably funnier in 97 when people had seen Cops more recently.
Oh, yeah. Like, as you mentioned now, this seems like a SNL sketch that was not as fleshed out.
Right.
Right. Well, but I think better than a lot of SNL sketches, because a lot of those fall really flat.
People forget there's a lot of them.
I do think that what they were going for with the Owen and Beru scene was to mirror, like, a lot of what Cops had, which was domestic violence disputes. So that's a lot of what police officers get called out to deal with, and that's a lot of what, like, the show Cops had on it.
Yeah.
And so they were doing that as a mirror. And I think some of it was funny in the sense they were talking about Luke and the full belief that Owen had that he'd just gone out to like farm the moisture fields.
Right, that is kind
of funny. And the fact that the cops were like, oh, Beru is clearly under a delusion that he's left forever, which is like actually what he did, was kind of weirdly humorous. It's kind of hard to call it humorous because it's kind of upsetting too, and it's mimicry of actual domestic violence.
Yeah, they were too accurate, I think. They should have gone more fantastic, more sci-fi somehow.
Like, they did Cops very well. They just did it in a way that, they made it hard to be funny because it was very
I agree.
upsetting.
So, I watch a lot of cartoons, right? So, there's this cartoon, Phineas and Ferb on TV, and they had a Star Wars episode. Like, fully licensed Star Wars parody episode. And like they had some characters like that were stormtroopers in there, and the way they did it was that the stormtroopers were out to do like ridiculously menial shit, like buy socks and like get sandwiches for people, and like that was how they kind of reconciled characters playing ideologically terrible people.
Right.
So I think they should have done something similar where they took it into a more fantastic, absurd direction in order to make it funny.
Sure.
As opposed to just trying to reskin cops as stormtroopers.
Right. Yeah. Well, I do think that what they achieved very well was that they were like, cops is funny because cops are inept, terrible people, and so are stormtroopers.
Hope we don't have any cops listening.
I certainly hope so, too.
We won't anymore.
For various ideological reasons. Yeah, I mean, that and, the stormtroopers being sort of similar ideologically. They definitely achieved that. But I agree that they could have gone more absurd and therefore funnier with it.
Yeah. Well, I think we just did our round of usual complaints before we end an episode.
Yeah.
What do we want to praise? I'd like to repeat that I think the weaving slightly in and out of New Hope events most of the time is pretty funny.
I think if they had gone longer, they would have had more of that, and that could have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I actually was a little disappointed because there was, like, at the very end, like, something about they were going to go to Mos Eisley Cantina.
Yeah, but that would take a whole lot more work.
Well, I know, but there was still, like, a couple minutes left in the episode, so I thought they might do something on it, but it ended up just being the credits. So I was really hoping they were going to do more.
That was a funny way to end it, though, because, like, of course there's just been an altercation at the Mos Eisley Cantina. Of course there has been.
I know, and it was a good way to end it. I was, like, kind of hoping that they were going to do a little more. Yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, I think that might be praised in its own way, too, because I kind of liked where they were going. I just don't think they went as far as... I think they could have done more, I guess.
Yeah, it's just not as funny as it feels like it could have been or something.
Yeah.
I guess. Mm-hmm. And we praised the costumes and sets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the general accuracy of portrayal.
Yeah. No, I laughed a lot during this. It was pretty funny. It was pretty well done. And, like, there's no moment in which you're pulled out of it. Like, you fully believe this is both Cops and Star Wars at the same time.
I pulled out of it a little bit in the Beru Owen scene.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
It doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah.
Seems forced.
That's true. But at the same time... visually, it reads as Star Wars the whole time.
Yeah.
Because the costuming and sets are so good. And it reads as Cops the whole time because the scripting is so good. Mm-hmm. So, they really pulled that off, I think. It's a hard thing to pull off. I honestly don't know where they got the idea.
So, did you have another thing?
Well, it just, like, they had the Star Wars look. It would have been maybe more interesting if they played it more Cops. Or, like, they had the looks of Star Wars, but their actions and the movements and the acting was more Cops-ish than Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you would pull that off as like a vague directing note, but...
Yeah.
So I think that is all for Troops and our discussion of it. Now, Dom, starting week after next, you're going to be away for a while doing community theater and not able to record.
That's right, yeah.
So next week, I'm throwing you a bone. and we are going to do a Avatar The Last Airbender fanfic.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
I probably shouldn't have because I'm sacrificing all my principles to pull a fanfic from 2007.
Gasp.
How big is the bone and how juicy?
Yeah, you should have told the cop outside your window. It's like, the dog won't attack me. I'm a dog. They'll know. The dog will know.
The canine unit will know.
The canine unit will understand.
I, too, am also a canine unit of sorts.
We should refer to people as blank units.
Right?
Well, you should be thankful to this fanfiction finding unit for next week's Avatar story, Brothers in Arms by Fuzzy Tomato. You can find a link there at bit.ly/RFR Brothers, by the way, if you want to read it in advance.
Where in the Avatar continuity is that?
It is.
So I know whether I'm going to watch all of Avatar or all of Avatar again.
I think it was written after season 2, but before season 3 came out.
That was a hard hiatus to experience.
Yeah.
And it was hard to find a fanfic that seemed to be well regarded that was not Zutara from that era. And I know that was a request because you have your own like personal scars from those wars, and also our last Avatar fanfic was
It's
Zutara.
like nothing about the content in general. It's just the state of the fandom and the fans.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
Why? Why?
And also, no.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
No, like it's not a good match.
It's like
I don't get it.
It was the obvious idea that the show went away from, and they're like, no, do the stupid obvious thing. Like, no.
It's not obvious though. They're like
Fire and water. They're opposites, but they love each other. It's obvious.
Yeah, no. Well, okay, I hear what you're saying, but like, you're right. It's obvious if you've gone for something terrible.
Exactly.
Hope we don't have any Zutara shippers out there listening to this podcast.
Our one cop Zutara shipper is going to be very angry about this episode.
That's okay.
I know.
I accept their anger.
But yes, but don't worry, I found it. I found the fanfic that was not Zutara from that era. And we're going to read it. And hopefully it will be good. I have reason to think it might be.
Good.
As for this was episode 73 of Retro Fanfic Retrospective, the fan film Troops. I'm not even bothering with a bit.ly, just go find it.
Wow.
Troops, Star Wars, you're done.
I mean, the truth is, you could have watched it 3 times while listening to this episode.
Yes, you could have. We could have just played the audio.
Let's do that
And
right
talked
now.
about it. Yeah, we need to pad this out.
Yeah.
Too short. It's probably going to be our shortest episode. That's okay. We're not going to play the audio.
Yes, I think it will be.
Maybe
Short.
it won't be that
Could not
short.
be. Should we talk more about Disney villains?
Yeah, that was like a third of our content already. We'll save that for another day. For the meantime, let me just say that the intro song to this podcast is The Weekly Fare off of the album Popey's Incredible Adventure by Komiku. And the outro song is Run Against the Universe from that same album. And you can find it and other music by Komiku at loyaltyfreakmusic.com. How am I doing here?
Your read this week is very enthusiastic. I don't know why, but I guess that's good.
Yeah, that's great. You're doing fantastic. Keep going. You're doing spectacular and also fantastic. And we're really delighted with your performance on the show. Also, you're really fantastic and spectacular.
That's right. I started doing that, like, should I pad it out a bit? But instead, I just got really excited. You can find our website on the internet at retrofanficretrospective.podbean.com. You can't find it off of the internet, so don't even try. You can also use the bit.ly link, bit.ly/retrofanfic.
I have a hard drive full of RFR episodes.
It would be difficult to find it off the internet.
Don't steal Dom's computer.
Oh yeah, don't, because that make it difficult to make more episodes.
Yes, very difficult.
If you have questions, comments, or thoughts about the episode, please contact us on Twitter at retrofanfic or send us an email at retrofanficretrospective@gmail.com. You can also find us on Reddit at Fanfic Retrospective, at Facebook at retrofanfic. There might be something that's called a
Instagram?
Instagram. Okay, Instagram. Yeah. And you can leave comments on the podcast program or whatever you're using to listen to us, which is probably some kind of program. Yeah.
This is sort of maybe an internet thing.
This episode's falling apart.
It usually does at this point. I'm Amato.
I am Tori.
I'm Dom.
We're just 3 Earth life forms trying to be nice to each other and not cause some sort of domestic incident. Until next time, take care.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is not
This is
the
not.
podcast you're looking for.
It's a subversion of like.
Yeah, no, I get it,
Yeah.
but
It's fine.
I'm just not sure which one it is, honestly.
It's okay. We're faded out.
Yeah, no, we're gone.
We're gone.
The only worse one is one of the live action Mamoru's who's but then you've got like Mamoru in several of the old musicals played by the guy who was the original Red Ranger, meaning Tyranno Ranger. And he's just like such a smiley, like wholesome type guy, and he looks like he's he's definitely like 40 years old, but that's okay because he was playing across a Sailor Moon who was definitely like 30. Like and anyway, so smiley and pleasant.